Hey guys, this is Father Charlie Kahlberg, All Saints Anglican Church, Greenville, South Carolina, and you've reached the home of our All Saints video devotion. We're in part 2 of a 2-part series on the Ascension, and this is a big deal. Too oftentimes, we as God's people rush straight from the resurrection and Easter right to Pentecost and the coming of the Holy Spirit, and all but forget about the Ascension. But the Ascension is a really, really big deal. Remember, Jesus doesn't say that I must first be raised from the dead and then I will pour out the Holy Spirit on you. Instead, Jesus says after the resurrection, I must first ascend to the Father and then the Holy Spirit will come. In fact, Jesus goes on to say that if I don't ascend, the Holy Spirit won't come. And this is a really, really big deal because remember, the Holy Spirit isn't poured out on us just so we can have groovy worship experiences. Instead, the primary role of the Holy Spirit in the work of redemption is that the Holy Spirit takes what God has accomplished for you and He applies it to you. The Holy Spirit is the one who takes the salvation that Christ has accomplished and He makes it yours. He applies it to you. And so that's a really huge deal. And so what we want to know in our 2-part series is why. What is this vital connection? What is this vital role? What's going on in the Ascension that makes it a key component without which the Holy Spirit won't come? And so I hope that by the end of our series today, you're going to have a pretty clear understanding of that. Not only that, I think that you're going to be absolutely blown away at the enormity of the salvation that Christ has accomplished for us. I know that you're going to be encouraged. But anyway, part 2 of our series coming up right now. Enjoy. So why is the Ascension such a big deal? And why is the coming of the Holy Spirit directly tied to it? Well, the good news is that we can answer this question in just 2 words: presentation and application. Now remember, in our last lesson we saw that Christ perfectly fulfills the pattern of salvation that God promises to His people back in Leviticus 16:15. A sacrifice was made. It was deemed acceptable. And it was presented to God and remains before God. In other words, Christ ascends to heaven in order to present Himself before the very throne of God as our full and complete sacrifice. As a result, Christ, your all-sufficient sacrifice, is ever before the throne of God on your behalf. And this brings us to our second word, application. However, to understand the significance of this word, we need to return once again to our passage in Leviticus and the picture it provides of the salvation that Christ came to accomplish. In Leviticus 16 verses 7 through 10, God tells Aaron to select 2 goats. They are to be identical and for all practical intents and purposes interchangeable. In fact, to choose between the 2 goats, Aaron is told to cast lots, basically to flip a coin. One goat is sacrificed as a sin offering for the people of God, and its blood is the one that is presented before God in the Holy of Holies. However, immediately after presenting the blood of the first goat, as soon as Aaron comes out from behind the veil, God says, "Then Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities of the sons of Israel." God goes on to say, "He shall lay their sins on the head of the live goat, and then he shall send it away into the wilderness." Now, why is this so important? Remember, God's people could not see behind the veil. Therefore, God uses the second goat to illustrate or provide a picture of the transaction that had just occurred behind the veil with the first goat. Notice then the message. God assures His people that He now deals with them in terms of the accepted sacrifice just presented to Him. In other words, the sacrifice presented for them is now applied to them, and it, not their sins, determines their relationship with God. And it is this very picture and promise of salvation that Christ perfectly fulfills. The sacrifice accomplished on the cross, deemed acceptable in the resurrection, and presented at the Ascension, is now applied to God's people. How do we know? Pentecost is the answer. The coming of the Holy Spirit is proof that God now deals with us in terms of Christ's sacrifice and not our own merits. On Pentecost, God poured out His Holy Spirit to apply the new life that Christ accomplished for us to us. Pentecost, then, is the fruit or the direct result of the Ascension. It is proof that the salvation accomplished, accepted, and presented to the Father has been applied to His people. Notice the result. God now deals with you in terms of Christ's all-sufficient sacrifice. Not only that, God has seated Christ at His right hand to govern all creation in light of the kingdom and the new life that He has accomplished for His people. In other words, your advocate, the one who has your interest in mind, is reigning over every detail of existence that you face. All around you, God is unfolding the kingdom He promised to you. And within you, His Holy Spirit is applying the grace that will make you a citizen fit for that kingdom. And that's why the Ascension is such a big deal. Inside and out, God is dealing with you in terms of the fullness of the salvation that Christ has accomplished for you. And now you know. Thank you for watching.